time 19 years before when Stefanie, then only 11, had announced that she was going to learn to read Torah. When she made the pronouncement, Anne and Lou had been mildly shocked, wondering for a time if their daughter was biting off more than she could chew. Not that she wasn't bright enough. They had no doubt that Stefanie, an honor student, who in the first and second grades used to come home from school sobbing because her advanced books were different from those of her classmates, was intellectually capable. Still, it was an ultra-ambitious goal. The Torah was a collection of the first 5 books of the Judaic scriptures, the entire body of Jewish law and learning. It was written in Hebrew. Reading Torah meant chanting from the scripture in the original language. It was not easy, mastering the intonations required to give meaning to the words. On her own, Stefanie had called the cantor and arranged for lessons, then had applied herself to learning the task with diligence. By the time Stefanie became a bas mitzvah at age 13, she was an accomplished Torah reader, one qualified not only to read, but to help teach younger would-be readers as well. It was typical of her daughter, Anne thought, that the passage she liked the most was called The Curses, since it required a reader of particular skill, one who could intone the rising and falling cadences of the difficult text in the way it was meant to be delivered, chanting some sentences rapidly, then dropping her voice and switching to a deliberate, slow pace in others. Done correctly, it could be an impressive service, and Stefanie always strove to do it correctly, just as she did everything else. When she was a student at Cheltenham High School, which was generally regarded as possibly the best in all of Montgomery County, she had pushed herself to a National Merit Scholarship. And then she selected Bryn Mawr to do her undergraduate work, intending at first to be a physician. But in her freshman year, she discovered that she had a phobia about needles, so she switched her major to political science, graduating with honors in 1989. The following fall, she was accepted into law school at Temple University, from which she graduated again with honors in 1992. After passing the bar, she took a much-coveted job with one of Center City's more respected firms. Now, it seemed to Anne, her daughter was equally determined to be both a good mother and a good lawyer, balancing the difficulties of 2 major tasks with her usual ease and finesse. After the baby, Haley Sarah, had been born in May 1996, Stefanie asked the partners in her firm if she could work 3 days a week until she felt comfortable leaving her daughter with a nanny full-time. Unwilling to lose her, they readily agreed. So on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, she commuted to Philadelphia. The rest of the week she was home with Haley. "Should we go in here?" Anne asked as they approached a boutique. Stefanie glanced at her watch. "Oh, no. Look at the time." Anne smiled to herself. It was typical of Stefanie that she wore an inexpensive watch, when many of the other female lawyers she knew would be sporting the newest and most conspicuous models they could find. In that regard, Stefanie had not changed since high school. Although she dressed impeccably for the job, when she wasn't working, she was perfectly content to parade around in baggy sweat clothes with very little makeup. If anyone ever asked her for a definition of the word unpretentious, Anne thought she would quickly say Stefanie Rabinowitz. "I'd better get home," Stefanie said. "Craig will be going crazy with Haley." "That's not true, and you know it," Anne chuckled. "He absolutely dotes on her." "Yes, he does," Stefanie replied, laughing. "And you don't know how happy that makes me." "Oh, I might have some idea," Anne said, returning the smile. "How's Craig's business doing?" she asked, somewhat nervously, not wanting to seem as though she were prying. The downside to the arrangement Stefanie had worked out with her firm to work only part-time meant she was getting only part-time pay as well. It was $30,000 a year, which wasn't bad at all, but it wasn't sufficient to support the lifestyle she and her husband Craig wanted to maintain, especially not with the baby. "I think he's getting ready to really take off," Stefanie said. "He's made a terrific connection with a guy in New York. Craig thinks it's going to result in a huge upswing in sales." "Come on, Mom," she added archly.